Ethiopia, home to Lalibela, 11 rock-hewn churches carved from solid stone in the 12th century, a UNESCO wonder of the world. But also a country where, between 2020 and 2022, the war in Tigray killed up to 600,000 civilians, one of the deadliest conflicts of this century. Ethiopia, home of Olympic legends, Abebe Bikila, Haile Gebrselassie, Tirunesh Dibaba, athletes who carried African pride into the world, but also a country where over 120,000 cases of sexual violence were documented in Tigray alone. Rape was used as a deliberate weapon of war. Ethiopia, birthplace of coffee, the Kaffa region, 9th century, the drink that changed the world, but also a country where today Oromo activists, journalists and politicians are jailed under the anti-terrorism proclamation. Ethiopia, the only African country never colonized, defeating the Italian army at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. But also a country where, since 2023, a state of emergency in the AMHARA region has led to drone strikes on civilians. Ethiopia, home of the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, the symbol of African unity, but also a country where, in October 2023, the government terminated the only UN body that was monitoring atrocity crimes, the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia. This is Ethiopia Today. We base these videos on the analysis of real cases of people facing persecution in their home countries. We are country expert witnesses from London, focusing on human rights violations. We receive cases from major law firms who represent asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Our goal is to prepare evidence-based assessments and expert witness reports for asylum tribunals. Today, it is a story about Ethiopia, a country of 120 million people, a country whose civilization is among the oldest in Africa, and a country that today produces one of the largest refugee outflows on the continent. If you are an asylum seeker or a legal representative looking for a country expert witness, you will find a verified list of qualified professionals covering all major regions of the world via the link in the description below. Ethiopia has one of the oldest continuous civilizations in the world. The Kingdom of Aksum was a major trading empire 2,000 years ago. The country adopted Christianity in the 4th century. It developed its own script, its own calendar, its own coffee culture. In 1896, at the Battle of Adwa, Ethiopia defeated the Italian army. It became the only African country never to be colonized by a European power. In 1991, a coalition of ethnic-based rebel groups overthrew the communist Derg regime. The Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, known as the EPRDF, took power. The country was reorganized along ethnic federalism. Each major ethnic group was given its own region. The dominant force inside the EPRDF coalition was the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the TPLF. In 2018, after years of Oromo protests, the Tigrayan-dominated coalition collapsed. Abiy Ahmed from the Oromo ethnic group became prime minister. He released political prisoners. He made peace with Eritrea. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. But behind the reform, Abiy was also centralizing power. He sidelined the TPLF. He arrested Oromo opposition leaders. He restructured the ruling coalition into the Prosperity Party, under his control. In November 2020, the war in Tigray began. Over the next 2 years, up to 600,000 civilians were killed. Ethiopian National Defense Forces, Eritrean Defense Forces, and AMHARA regional militias attacked Tigray. Famine was used as a weapon. Hospitals were destroyed, and rape was deployed as a deliberate weapon of war. In November 2022, the Pretoria Agreement ended the formal fighting. But it did not end the suffering. After Tigray, the federal government turned on its former allies. The AMHARA FANO militia, which had fought alongside the federal forces, became the new enemy. A state of emergency was declared in Amhara in August 2023. In Oromo, the Oromo Liberation Army continued an insurgency. Mass arrests, drone strikes and kidnappings became routine. And in 2026, the situation worsened again. In February, fighting resumed in Tigray. The transitional justice process is on pause. Peace remains out of reach. And this is where we are today. Let me show you who is in danger. If you are in Ethiopia and you belong to any of these groups, you may be at risk. Tigrayan civilians, particularly women survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. Tigrayan men of fighting age at risk of arbitrary detention. Oromo political activists, members of OLF, OLA, or supporters. Oromo journalists and human rights defenders. AMHARA civilians in the conflict zones facing drone strikes and mass arrests. AMHARA FANO militia members and their families. Women in rural areas facing FGM, child marriage, domestic violence, LGBTQ+ individuals under criminalization and social hostility. Eritrean refugees in Ethiopia facing forced return and persecution. Conscientious objectors and forced conscripts. Journalists covering ethnic conflict, religious minorities, Muslims in certain regions, Pentecostal Christians. If you recognize yourself in this list, keep watching. If you are in a similar situation, you can find a list of country expert reports on our website and use them in your asylum claim. You can also find a verified list of country expert witnesses on our website, link in the description. Tigray is one of the oldest centers of Ethiopian civilization. The ancient kingdom of Aksum, the obelisk of Aksum, the rock-hewn churches of Geralta, all are Tigrayan. But between November 2020 and November 2022, Tigray became one of the deadliest war zones on earth. Up to 600,000 people are estimated to have died during the Tigray war, from violence, from famine, from lack of medical care. Over 120,000 cases of sexual violence were documented by the Joint Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. The UN International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia found systematic and widespread sexual violence by all parties. Famine was used as a weapon. Hospitals were attacked, health systems collapsed. And on the 2nd of February 2026, fighting resumed in Tigray between the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and regional Tigray security forces.
They have been used in ethnically motivated attacks as a weapon of war. This is abominable.
Articles 555 to 561 of the Ethiopian Criminal Code criminalize bodily injury and sexual violence. But during armed conflict, these laws are not enforced against state forces. Articles 590 to 596 criminalize sexual violence specifically, but there have been no major prosecutions of high-ranking Ethiopian or Eritrean military officers for Tigray-era crimes. The Oromo people are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia, over 35% of the population. The current Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, is Oromo. The Oromo language, Afan Oromo, is one of the most spoken languages in Africa. But Oromo political opposition is treated as terrorism. After Abiy came to power in 2018, Oromo opposition leaders were initially welcomed home. But within 2 years, they were arrested again. The Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, and its armed wing, the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, were designated terrorist organizations. In July 2023, more than 100 Oromo university students were kidnapped by armed groups while traveling through Oromia. Most were never recovered. Mass arrests of Oromo politicians, journalists, and activists continue under the Anti-Terrorism Proclamation. Proclamation number 1176 of 2020, the Anti-Terrorism Proclamation, replaced the older Anti-Terrorism Proclamation of 2009. It defines terrorism broadly. It allows detention without charge for up to 4 months, and it has been used to imprison Oromo politicians, journalists, and human rights defenders. Proclamation number 1185 of 2020, the Hate Speech Proclamation, criminalizes vaguely defined hate speech. It has been used to silence Oromo social media activists. The AMHARA people are the second largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. The AMHARA region is home to Lalibela, to Gondar, to Lake Tana, the source of the Blue Nile. But since 2023, AMHARA has become a war zone. During the Tigray War, AMHARA regional militias, known as FANO, fought alongside the federal government. After the Pretoria Agreement, the federal government tried to disband FANO. The AMHARA refused. The conflict turned inward. In August 2023, a state of emergency was declared in AMHARA. It has been extended repeatedly since. Drone strikes have killed civilians. Whole villages have been emptied. Mass arrests have detained thousands. The UN has identified AMHARA as the region with the highest level of violence in Ethiopia today. Proclamation number 1303 of 2023, the State of Emergency Declaration, gives the federal government sweeping powers: arbitrary arrest, suspension of habeas corpus, curfews, movement restrictions. The Defense Forces Proclamation number 1100 of 2018 has been used to authorize military operations against civilians in Amhara. Ethiopia has strong constitutional protections for women on paper. The constitution guarantees equality. Women have a constitutional right to land. But violence against women in Ethiopia is widespread, normalized, and rarely prosecuted. Female genital mutilation, FGM, affects approximately 65% of Ethiopian women aged 15 to 49. Child marriage rate, approximately 40% of girls marry before age 18, particularly high in Amhara region. Police routinely refuse to register domestic violence cases. Survivors are told to reconcile with husbands. Shelters are scarce. Articles 587 and 588 of the Ethiopian Criminal Code criminalize FGM and child marriage. But enforcement is almost non-existent in rural areas. The revised Family Code of 2000 set the minimum marriage age at 18. But in practice, customary and religious marriages of younger girls continue. Ethiopia's military tradition is ancient, going back to the Battle of Adwa in 1896, when Ethiopia defeated Italy. But during the Tigray War and the ongoing AMHARA and Oromo conflicts, conscription has become a tool of ethnic warfare. During the Tigray War, mass mobilization swept through ethnic Tigrayan, Amhara, and Oromo communities. Men of fighting age were given a choice: fight or face consequences. After Pretoria, the federal government attempted to integrate former Tigrayan fighters into the national army. Many refused, many fled. In Amhara, the federal government has been trying to disarm and conscript FANO militia members. Many have fled. The same dynamic exists in Oromia with OLA. The Defense Forces Proclamation number 1100 of 2018 governs military service in Ethiopia. There is no recognized right to conscientious objection, no alternative civilian service. During the Tigray War, refusing to fight was treated as treason or terrorism. The same is now occurring in Amhara and Oromia. According to UNHCR, by the end of 2024, approximately 4.5 million people from Ethiopia were displaced, 3.5 million internally, and over 1 million as refugees abroad. Ethiopia itself hosts approximately 950,000 refugees, mainly from South Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, and Sudan, where Ethiopians seek asylum. In the United Kingdom, approximately 3,500 asylum applications from Ethiopia were filed in 2024. Ethiopia is consistently in the top 20 source countries. In the United States, approximately 8,000 asylum applications from Ethiopians were filed in 2024. Across the European Union, the largest numbers were in Germany, France, Italy, and the Netherlands, with a combined total of approximately 18,000 applications. In Canada, approximately 2,500 asylum claims from Ethiopians were filed in 2024. Recognition rates. In the UK, the grant rate for Ethiopian asylum claims has been around 55% in 2024, among the higher rates in the UK system. For Tigrayan women survivors, rates exceed 75%. In the US, around 60% in immigration court for Ethiopian claims. In Canada, the recognition rate has been around 70% in 2024. In Germany, around 45%. In Italy, around 25%. Ethiopian asylum cases, particularly those involving Tigray, Oromo, or Amhara persecution, have among the highest grant rates in the world. Asylum is granted first and foremost when the state cannot or will not protect you from persecution. Ethiopia has laws on paper, but the laws fail at three levels. The persecutor is often the state itself: Ethiopian National Defense Forces, Eritrean forces, regional militias. When the persecutor is a non-state actor like FANO or OLA, the state has lost effective control of those regions. Civic space is closed. The CSO proclamation restricts NGOs. Hate speech proclamation criminalizes criticism. Anti-terrorism proclamation imprisons opposition.
Sovereignty does not mean ownership of people. All governments have a duty to treat all their people, including their political opponents, fairly, to protect them from harm and to respect their fundamental human rights.
What about internal relocation? Courts sometimes ask, can you just move to another part of Ethiopia? This is called internal relocation. Here is why it usually does not work. Ethnic federalism means your ethnicity follows you on every ID card. You cannot hide it. Tigrayans are at risk across the country, not just in Tigray. There were mass arrests of ethnic Tigrayans in Addis Ababa during the war. Oromos with political backgrounds are tracked nationally by federal intelligence. AMHARA civilians fleeing the conflict zone are detained at checkpoints across the country. Women fleeing FGM, forced marriage, or honor-based violence face the same threats from extended family across regions. Eritrean refugees and conscientious objectors face deportation if found anywhere on Ethiopian soil. The expert witness cannot accept or reject the applicant's testimony. That is the court's role. The expert assesses the applicant's account against the country's situation and provides a detailed conclusion on the risk of return to the country and the risk of internal relocation. In most cases, if the claimed information is accepted, internal relocation and return to Ethiopia are unsafe for these types of persecution. And if the court accepts the applicant's evidence, asylum can be granted in most cases. This is why a personal assessment of each individual case is critically important. What may happen on return? Arbitrary detention under anti-terrorism proclamation, particularly for Tigrayan, Oromo or AMHARA activists. Torture in detention, well documented by Human Rights Watch. Sexual violence, particularly for women survivors returning to conflict zones. Conscription and forced combat for men of fighting age. Forced return to Eritrea for Eritrean refugees and conscientious objectors. Enforced disappearance, particularly Oromo activists and journalists. These outcomes contradict the 1951 Refugee Convention, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Convention Against Torture, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Ethiopia is a country where sexual violence was used as a weapon of war on a massive scale, where political opposition is treated as terrorism, and where the only UN body that was monitoring atrocity crimes was terminated by the government itself. Freedom House rates Ethiopia as not free, with a score of 18 out of 100 in 2025, one of the lowest in Africa. Civil liberties, 11 out of 60. Political rights, 7 out of 40. Ethiopians are not asking for special treatment. They are asking to live, to return home, to rebuild, to not be killed by their own state. If you are from Ethiopia and you recognize yourself in this video, you are not alone. On our website, you will find a list of country expert reports for Ethiopian asylum cases, a verified list of country expert witnesses across the UK, US, EU, and Canada, and free resources for asylum seekers and legal representatives. Link in the description. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. We will continue to cover the countries the world ignores. Thank you for watching.